Hey everybody, Fletcher Ellingson here. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad that you're in this conversation. I believe that these types of conversations about evolving our thinking are the most important because they are what allows us to expand our experience, expand our awareness, and really create the results that we want in our lives. And today, I want to talk to you about something that's relevant because it's the new year. But whether it's not, or whether it is or it isn't the new year, it might be a birthday. It might be, you might be at a point where you've just had enough and you're like, I have to make a change. And many of us have been at that place before, whether it's the new year or not. And when we get to that point, we're like, I want to start fresh. I want to create goals. I want to create resolutions. I want to create some new experiences in my life. I want to get different results, and I want results that don't look like the ones I've gotten in the past. Right? And for many of us who set these types of goals and resolutions, for many of us, we see the same resolutions or goals that we saw on last year's list and on the list before that, right? Raise your hand if you can relate to what I'm talking about. I know that's been something for me. I'll give you a quick example. For years, I was a nail biter. I'd bite my fingernails, and each year I would say, "This is the year I stop. I'm going to stop biting my fingernails." Well, that went on for a lot of years. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I actually discovered the really cool secret and mind hack that allowed me to begin taking care of my nails. It allowed me to have really healthy and beautiful nails, which is something that was important to me because I was a professional magician and I was performing on a regular basis. And one time I caught a picture of myself performing, and it was on my hands and the cards, and I saw my nail beds and they looked terrible, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been performing all these years with nails that look like that. It didn't feel good, right? It wasn't to my liking. So anyway, I became a person who cared for his nails, who had healthy nails, who was proud, had took pride in the appearance of his nails, and it feels really good. But the cool thing was I learned how to do it using a specific mind hack. It allowed me to make that switch and reprogram my mind in 45 minutes. So I went from decades of biting my nails, 45-minute mind hack, and I was now a person who took care of his nails. But my point is that it's this time of year where we begin to thinking about those New Year's resolutions. And I want to encourage you to do something different this year. I want to encourage you to do something different. Now, you can still make your goals. I'm going to make my goals too. But I'm going to be putting almost all of my emphasis this year on identifying how I want to feel. I'll say that again. I'm going to put almost all my emphasis on identifying the ways that I want to feel in 2021. And the reason I'm doing that, and we'll get into it in more depth, but the reason I'm going to do that is because I believe that our feelings, our emotions, which are tied to our ways of being, such as open, willing, helpful, attentive, present, these ways of being are our access. It is our direct access to the actions that we take, which then in turn gets our results. I'll talk more about this, but I want to talk about first off, where is it that our emotions are coming from? Well, emotions are a chemical reaction in the mind. That's all an emotion is. It's a chemical reaction. But what's kind of stimulating, what's triggering that emotional / chemical reaction? Because if we could, kind of reverse engineer all the way back to that, whoa, we would be in an incredible position to really begin to take control in a stronger manner and navigate our life with a lot greater ease and joy if we could really be in charge of our emotional state. And so what I want to suggest to you is this: all of your emotions they stem from the story that you have. So for instance, if you have a story that things are not going to work out for you, if you have that's going to provide an emotional basis from which you then operate. If you're worried, if you are stressed out, if you are overwhelmed, it's because that's your story about a particular part of your life. And when you're operating from worry, stress, overwhelm, you have access to certain actions. And I'll make this even more clear. Let's say you want to be a broker of peace. Let's say you want to be somebody who brings peace to the world. If you're going around judgmental and angry, you're going to be severely hampered in your ability to broker peace between yourself and others, or between other people, like if you're a mediator or an ambassador, right? When we look at people like Nelson Mandela or Gandhi, who had to literally sit across the table from the people who were oppressing them, they had to leave their judgment. They had to leave their stories of these guys are trash and deserve to die. These guys have oppressed us for years. You guys have taken advantage. They had to leave all of their stories outside. And really, not just outside. They didn't just check them at the door. They actually had to come up and develop a brand new story that said, what's possible is peace. What's possible is a relationship with those who used to oppress us, that a relationship that allows everybody to thrive. That was the story they had to come up with. They had to be able to sit across from those who oppressed them and say, gosh, I see those people looking at me, and they're actually doing the best they can with the tools that they have and they don't have. Now, what happened in the past definitely didn't feel good, but they couldn't dwell on that. They couldn't dwell on the story of the past that didn't feel good. What they had to do was come up with a new story that felt good and inspiring. A story that said our people are free. Our people they have rights. They're able to own land. They're able to vote. They're able to walk down the street with safety. They had to come up with a story that felt really good and inspiring and that they could focus on, which created chemicals, an emotional state, and allowed them to communicate with the people across the table. This is how powerful our story is, because those stories allowed people like Mandela and Gandhi to broker peace. It allowed Mother Teresa to connect with people all over the globe, right? She had a story that what she was doing was much bigger than herself, and that she could overcome any obstacle. She could navigate any obstacle. Her story was one of empowering. So my question to you is, are your stories empowering? Or do you have a story that says, oh, I can't do it. I'm too old. I'm too gay. I'm too straight. I'm too black. I'm too white, right? I don't have the education. I don't have the finances. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. All of those are stories. And what I want to ask you is, does the story you have feel good? Does it feel inspiring? Does it feel empowering? Does it move you forward or hold you back? And if the answer is it doesn't feel good and it's holding me back, I want to encourage you to consider the ramifications of that. Like, they are far reaching. If your story is holding you back, it's holding you back from living a powerful life. It's holding you back from the experiences that you want to have, but don't believe you can have, right? You want these wonderful experiences of maybe going on vacation, or sending your kids to college, or getting a degree yourself, or creating that business, or having a warm, full marriage, right? One where you feel connected. one where you have open communication. You may want all these things or some of these things, but you have a story that says, I can't have it. You have a story that says, they can't do it, or I can't do it, or they should do it, or they owe me something. You see, there's a story, and that story is either allowing a sense of freedom or it's confining us. And so this year, I really want and encourage you to really think about how you want to feel. Because if you want to feel good, which, you know, that's what I preach, the practice of feeling good in business and life. If you want to feel good in your life, then we've got to pay attention to the story. So my story used to be that money was a struggle, that life was a struggle, and that life was unfair. And consequently, life didn't feel very good. It felt unfair. It felt like a struggle. And money was hard to come by. And don't get me wrong, I could work hard. I could work most people under the table. I'd work all night, 7 days a week. In fact, I did for a long time, and it took its toll. And even though I was still working hard, because my story was that life is a struggle, life is unfair, and that money is hard to come by, even though I was working my butt off, all those other things were true and present in my life. And so what I had to do was I changed my story about life being unfair. What I did was I developed a story that life is incredibly fun, and that fair or unfair was irrelevant. Life was what I said it was going to be. It was fun. It was full of wonderfully feel-good challenges. I came up with a story that said I can navigate through any challenge, and I did. I came up with a story that said wealth flows to me, prosperity flows to me, and it began doing that, and it still is. I created a story that said life is, I can navigate life with ease and joy, and I began doing that. I created a story that said I can become an athlete, and I did. I changed the story, and I focused on those stories so much that my mind, which is a goal achieving machine, began to look for ways to make it happen. But it started with my feelings. Like, it started with my story, which gave me the feelings. So I'd focus on the story, and that story was inspiring. And I would talk about it out loud. I'd share it with people. And the more we share it, the more the more it becomes live for us. It becomes real for us. And, you know, when you talk about something out loud and share it with people, it kind of becomes infectious. Like, they ask more questions. They're like, oh, that's cool. How are you going to do that? Or can I get involved with that? You know, you begin bringing this story alive through language. In fact, when we think about it, we really feed or starve our relationships through language, through the stories that we tell ourselves about those relationships. So I radically changed the stories in my life, in all areas of my life, physically, spiritually, in my career, and my relationships. I changed all my stories, and they were radically different. And as a result, I began experiencing radically different results than I had been previously. And so what I want to really encourage you this year, as you go into the new year, is take a look at your stories. Do they inspire you? Do they feel good? And if the answer is no, then I encourage you to change the story. And some of you will say, well, how do you do that? Well, you do it by writing down how you want that particular area of your life to look. So, for instance, if it's marriage, like, for instance, you know, the way I define my marriage is we are wide open communication, stronger than steel support, and a living illustration of joy, connection, and contribution. That's how I define my marriage, right? And so I got really specific about it. And so I know that if I ever get off track and start wondering, like, what's going on in my marriage, or who am I in my marriage, I can always come back to that. Oh yeah, who we are is wide open communication, stronger than steel support, a living illustration of joy, connection, and contribution. And so I can check myself. And through, and so anyways, create stories that feel good. And the more you think about them, the more they come to life. And, we're so practiced at noticing what's not working in our lives that becomes a story. We point out what's not working. We point out who failed. We point out what they should have done, what they should have said. We point out what a crappy job they're doing. We point out how unfair it is. We point out how unfair it feels. We point out when we've been victimized. We're very practiced at pointing out what's not working for ourselves or the country or for the school system or for our company, right? We're very practiced at it. And what we're pointing out are stories. We're pointing out evidence that support our grand story. We're pointing out these other little mini stories as chapters in the grander story that we have about life. And we're so practiced at it, we don't even notice that we're doing it. But what that does is it creates a chemical reaction in our head called an emotion. And then we feel depressed. We feel unhappy. We feel uninspired. We feel lazy. We feel disconnected. And if those are the ways of feeling, then then let that be a red flag that, oh, something's wrong with my story. Or not that there's just, I take that back. There's nothing wrong with your story, because there's no good, bad, right, or wrong. There's really, oh, this story doesn't feel good. It's disempowering. It's not moving me forward in life. It's holding me back. Our stories absolutely keep us playing a small game of life or a big game of life. So again, how do you want to feel this year? Do you want to feel connected? Do you want to feel open? Would you like to feel willing as opposed to resistant? Would you like to feel kind? Would you like to feel compassionate? Would you like to feel present? Would you like to feel calm? Would you like to feel connected? Would you like to feel loving? Would you like to feel curious? There's so many ways to feel. There's so many ways of being. And when we practice these and create an empowering story that has these ways of being, all of a sudden life shifts. Life shifts in all these different directions, but directions that are moving you forward instead of holding you back. Suddenly you're having different experiences. You're having different conversations. You're seeing things differently. What I'm focused on this year is identifying how I want to feel, and how I want to feel overall in general is good. And so what I'm practicing is pointing out what's working well. What's working well in my life? What are other people doing that's working well? Now, the temptation may be to or the question might be how can you possibly see anything that's going well when everything has been falling apart in 2020? But that isn't the story that I have. You see, I don't have a story that everything was falling apart in 2020. I have a story that things were happening in 2020 that were opportunities for us to advance and evolve to that next level. 2020 was showing us some of the things that we didn't care for. It was highlighting some of those things we didn't care for so that we could make changes. 2020 was about highlighting there's a lot of disconnection so that we can become more connected. We can become more unified. 2020 was about showing us how quickly we can rally to create a vaccine, whereas it's taken years and years in the past. 2020 was about highlighting kindness and connection and the need for kindness and connection, the desire for kindness and connection. 2020 was an opportunity for healing for the planet, because in the years up to 2020, how we've heard so much like, the world's dying, we're killing it, blah, blah, blah. This was the great global pause that allowed maybe for the planet to begin to catch its breath. And you may have a story that says, that's bullshit, Fletcher. That's okay. I'm going with a story that feels good. Because that story inspires me. So in summary, as you take on this new year, as you take on your life, identify how you want to feel. And what's the story? What's the feel-good story that you want to live into? Just make it general. You don't have to get specific. You don't have to know how many pounds you want to lose or how much exactly to the dollar you want to make. Maybe it sounds like something like this. I'm really enjoying taking care of myself physically. I'm really enjoying taking care of my body and my mind. I'm enjoying learning new things and paying attention to my health. I really like it, the fact that I'm eating healthier and healthier. I really love that I'm drinking more and more water. Every time I take a glass of water, it feels really good. It makes me happy. Begin telling yourself these stories. Talk to yourself out loud. That's what I do. I literally talk to myself out loud. I love that my business is growing and that I'm getting in front of a wider audience and that I'm connecting with people who are eager to learn about evolving their thinking and who are willing to share themselves with me. And through that connection, we both benefit and we're both part of the solution. I love being part of the solution. That feels really good. I love being part of the solution. When I think about that, it inspires me and it puts me into action. There's people who frequently come to me and they'll say, Fletcher, I know what I should do, but I don't know why I don't do those things, right? And you may relate to this. You know what you should be doing. You have all the information, but what you don't know is why you're not doing what you're not doing, why you're not doing what you should be doing. Consider that the answer is because you have a disempowering story around it. You might have a story that says, I'm too lazy, I can't do it, I've tried it before, it didn't work out in the past, I don't know where to start. And you can see that those stories create a chemical reaction called an emotion in your mind, and then you don't take action because you don't have access to taking action from that state, from that emotional state. So change up the story to something that feels empowering. That's all I've got for you today. And I want you to know that I know that you can do this. I get the wonderful privilege of working with so many people, and I get to see these other people doing it on a regular basis, changing their stories. A lot of people ask me, what do you do as a coach? Well, what I really do is I help people develop a new story, a story that feels good, a story that centers around freedom, a story that allows them to break free and begin experiencing a powerful life. And that's what's possible for you. I know you can do this, and I believe in you. If you want to find out more, you can reach me at FletcherEllingson.com or thepracticeoffeelinggood.com. So I wish you all the best in this 2021. And if you get an opportunity, I'd love to hear the empowering story that you build for yourself. Take care.